Okay, right. It's 2 minutes past now, so and the numbers seem to have stopped going up quite so much. So I think it's probably worth us starting now. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining our latest webinar, Tackling Fraud in an Evolving Landscape. I'm Becky Sutton, the Claims Relationship Manager. Today's webinar is being presented by Mike Richards, the Casualty Investigations Team Manager, and Rebecca Birch, the Motor Fraud Team Manager. Just a bit of housekeeping. Attendees' mics and cameras are automatically off. The event will be recorded and we will share the recording after the event. We'll also be sharing a survey after the event with the recording, which would be really grateful if you could complete, as it helps us plan future events and understand the topics that you want to hear back on. There will be some question and answers, so if you want to put any questions in the Q&A, we will look to answer those at the end. Any we don't answer, we will try and cover off separately, and we'll also send those out with the recording. So I hope you all enjoy the event, and I'm going to now hand over to Mike. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. So I'm Mike Richards, Casualty Fraud Investigations Manager, and I manage a team of casualty fraud investigators across the UK. I have experience in handling complex casualty fraud investigations, and in 2017 I won Insurance Post's Young Fraud Investigator of the Year. Just to confirm, I'm no longer eligible for that category, and I've worked in the industry for over a decade. So what are we going to be covering today? So both Becky and I will look to demonstrate how the world of claims fraud is changing and evolving, with the era being very different to how it was 10 years ago. Whether that be the movement into different areas from the fraudsters, the rising importance of technology, an evolution from a judicial and legislative perspective, or the changing behaviours in the professionals involved in the claims process. We do also plan to evidence how we can defend these cases and what you as customers and brokers can do to assist in the fight against fraud. So before we do that, what I thought was I would test your current knowledge and understanding of insurance fraud by asking a few questions around fraud statistics. So in August, the ABI produced the latest fraud figures. I don't know whether any of you saw that press release, and I think it will be clear from your answers whether you did or not. But if you could just type your answers to these questions in the chat. So the first one, how much do you think insurance fraud cost the industry in 2022, according to the ABI? Any thoughts? Yeah, apologies. I think I may have clicked that slide a little bit forward, but 1.1 billion is the answer. And this is based on detected fraud. So yeah, at least £2 billion, however, goes undetected each year. So we go to question 2. What was the average value of a fraudulent claim in 2022? So we've got 50,000, 22,850 pounds. There's a mixed. Somebody has got the right answer, and this time I didn't click the slide, so well done for that. 15,000 was the actual answer to that question. So this really reflects property fraud and the rise in that area, which rose up to 134 million. This was up 8% on prior year and was largely down to inflation. Now, the last question. In 2022, which line of business made up the largest volume of fraudulent cases? Was it motor, was it property, or was it casualty? We do have a real mix in the chat. The answer was motor. So motor insurance continues to make up the largest volume of fraud cases, representing 59% of total insurance claim fraud. So now what I'm going to do is just look at those areas in a little bit more detail. As I said at the start, as we are seeing that the landscape is constantly changing. So I'll start with property. We have seen a significant increase across the whole property spectrum, from low value loss of mobile phones to even in the higher value increase of suspicious arson cases. We also know cannabis cultivation is on the increase in the UK, which has led to a rise in cannabis factories being discovered. Our head of claims fraud has been in discussions with both the Home Office and the ABI on this topic. So the property claims process, it is designed to be quick and quite light touch for consumers to ensure we are paying genuine claims quickly, sometimes at one touch, and across the industry, even no touch. But what this does is it puts pressures on fraud detection. Therefore, it's paramount we need to be quick and effective and highlight those suspicious cases instantly through analytics, which I will discuss in a moment. In terms of motor, we do have a motor expert, Rebecca Birch, on the call, so I won't cover this in any real detail other than to say legislative reform was brought in aimed at eliminating low-cost fraud in the motor book. And the government aimed to bring down the costs of motor premiums, as the area was plagued by bogus whiplash claims. However, similar to a number of areas where we have seen legislative reform, what we see in practice is very different. And what has happened is behaviours have just changed and adapted, with enablers now looking to game the system. And lastly, with casualty, and I'll provide further detail on this later, but we have seen a real spike in fraudulent pothole claims. As adverse weather conditions, we're seeing more potholes on our road, with the AA noting a 26% spike in call-outs for cars that have been hit by potholes. We've also seen exaggerated vehicle damage claims, as well as a rise of injury fraud in this area. Also in casualty, from an organised perspective, there have been instances of organised frauds occurring in shopping centres, and evidence to suggest that these have been deliberately staged. So I often get asked the question around new areas. And when looking at new areas where we may see fraud practitioners will often say that fraud is seen where there's an incentive, that's usually a financial one, an opportunity, and also where fraud can be rationalised by the fraudster. This can be implied in casualty, particularly where we're seeing cases being submitted outside of the portal. So fixed cost regime doesn't apply. So this is the potential incentive for both the claimant, because it's higher value, and also the claimant solicitors in terms of their costs. We'll see the opportunity by way of areas where there's a perception that negligence can be easily established. And as claimants may not necessarily be fully informed in the claims process, this may be a perception that they think that they do have, in fact, a valid claim, and that's where you'll get the rationalisation. And an example of this we've seen is in cavity wall insulation claims. So this falls outside of the fixed cost regime, so potentially high value. There's a perception that poorly fitted cavity wall insulation caused damp and mould in properties, and in some cases this is correct. And defendants have often now gone into administration and are unlikely to be able to defend these cases from a liability perspective. Therefore, you have the opportunity. And claimants, and there's evidence to suggest this is the case, have been told that they have a genuine claim. But following the administration of a number of firms that have been quite vigorously pursuing these claims, claimants have been left with cost bills. And you may have seen this in the media, have been arguing that they weren't fully informed in the process, and now we have SRA involvement. So that's something to look out for. So that is a quick canter through the different lines of business. Now I thought it would be useful just to provide an update of our structure here at Zurich. And we have tweaked this slightly in light of the evolving nature of fraud. So we do now have a specific data analytics team that's managed by Kat Perry. We have a specific technology role. That's Lindsay Winter, as you'll see in the top left-hand side. We have detection teams that are focused in motor and casualty and look at all the different new ways in which claims hit our desk, not just manual referrals from claims handlers on the ground, but also from our technology. And lastly, we have a revamped property team with a specific low-value investigations team that enables us to handle the increase in volumes that we've seen in the property arena. We now move to technology. The fraudsters are using technology to aid their cause. And to combat this, the counter fraud industry, as you're probably aware, has also got a plethora of tools to detect and to prevent fraud. Technology is therefore playing a more important role than ever before. So in terms of the technology itself, it has to be as close to real time as possible to be in harmony with the customer journey and not hinder any settlement times. But not only does the technology need to be quick, it also needs to be efficient. It needs to be smart enough to know exactly what the fraud is. And what we have seen historically is that tools could create a number of false positives, and this could clog up the process. But as you'll see from the fraud filter, as I go into more detail, we work with smart technology partners to find tools that are both quick and efficient. So we have the fraud filter or the fraud funnel. And you can see at the top we have Quantexa. So Quantexa is a company that has achieved unicorn status, which is a valuation of over £1 billion, and partners with companies such as Google and does a lot of work for the UK government. And this will be our NetReveal replacement. So what will Quantexa do? So firstly, in terms of network analysis, so this is real-time screening where we currently use NetReveal. So this looks into data entities and establishes links and patterns. So if you're not aware of this, maybe think Criminal Minds, pieces of string going from various victims to individuals. And it's similar with insurance in that there's a link to previous claims, pieces of intelligence. This could be insurance fraud register data. It may also be insurance fraud bureau data. We also have automated rules-based scoring. And this is about taking those red flags and building scoring around them, those indicators. So in motor, that may be that there's been delays in claim submission. In property, it could be that it's been submitted quite close to inception, or with slip and trip, an accident that's occurred late at night or on a weekend. And this is incredibly useful, with scorecards becoming more specific, and it enables us to learn and amend and tweak, reducing false positives. And Quantexa, we believe, will really increase our agility in this area. So linked to this, I wanted to talk about the topic of artificial intelligence, and it's a bit of a surprise that this is a presentation that's taken 15 minutes for AI to be mentioned, as generative AI in particular, known as Gen AI, is a particularly new buzzword across the industry. So examples of Gen AI include large language models such as ChatGPT. So from a perpetrator perspective, if you were to ask the robot ChatGPT, how do I commit insurance fraud, you would instantly get a refusal to answer. But what we have seen is people look to jailbreak this software. So reframing the question, asking questions such as, how does an insurance fraudster operate, and looking to get a response. There are also on the dark web various other GPTs that have been created for nefarious purposes, such as Fraud GPT and Worm GPT. And from a defense, so this is something definitely to watch out for, but from a defense perspective, we can also use generative AI to assist. So what they could potentially do is take large networks and entities, and large language models are likely to provide real insight into exactly what these networks are saying. And this is where we feel Quantexa can be of real benefit to Zurich. The next area you will see from the funnel is metadata analysis, and that is being used to detect digitally manipulated documents, stock images, as well as images that have been taken prior to the loss occurring. So through our partnership with Quantexa, we are looking to move to embedding this technology within our claim systems, again adopting a very proactive approach as opposed to a reactive one. Next on the funnel, and you may not be aware of this, and this is voice validation, so voice analytics. This is now being seen across the industry, particularly in fast-speed transactions in low-value property cases. So this involves policyholders being asked a number of questions to establish whether further investigations are needed. To clear speed boasts a 97% accuracy on phone questionnaires. So this process entails customers completing a short verbal questionnaire which can identify the risks associated with answers to those closed questions. And those closed questions are very specific. For example, if it was a property claim involving a stolen ring, questions may be, are you aware of where the ring is currently? When was the last time you saw the ring? Was it on the accident date? For example, and we are currently targeting a small set of property claims where suspicions are present to pilot this software at Zurich. The FOSS in property have provided initial support from this software from an ethical perspective. And the last one that I wanted to talk about in detail was open source screening. So this is really exciting as it seeks to reverse engineer the way that we handle intelligence. The previous approach was reliant on manual detection by the fraud team, and the fraud team then sending cases to our intelligence team. But our approach is no longer a reactive one. In a GDPR compliant fashion, claims data is provided to the tech provider and they are ran through an algorithm that flags anything on the internet that's relevant to that claim. In essence, we're now fishing in a different pond. And you'll see at the bottom, the idea is particularly in property that if cases go through the funnel, we'll then be in a position to settle cases and validate cases quicker and move to a quick claim settlement. I will now hand over to Rebecca Birch, who will no doubt build on my snapshot in motor and provide you some more detail on that.
Thank you, Mike. Good morning, everyone. As Mike said, I'm Rebecca Birch. I'm a motor fraud manager for Zurich. I manage a motor fraud investigators across the UK, and I've got experience in handling fraud from low speed impact right up to your more complex fraud ring investigations. I've been with at Zurich for over 20 years, and the majority of that have been within the fraud investigation unit. I will be going on to some cases and issues we're seeing across the motor CRU team. But before we do, I just want to touch on a couple of highlights we've had for 2023 as a unit. So as you guys know, we deal with all sorts of claims, as Mike's touched upon: property, motor, casualty. We even have a couple of number of travel fraud rings within the team, and we've also dealt with the odd international claim where we've collaborated with our US fraud team as well. So in 2023, our team retained a total of 3,675 new investigations, which is up by 5% of 2022. And those 3,675 new investigation has provided us with a potential savings worth 88.56 million. The total savings for 2023 across the unit was 78.52 million, which is also up by 12% on 2022. Now, I've put 2 IFED referrals on this slide. They were accepted by IFED. I mean, we all know how difficult it is to have cases accepted by them. And although they were cease and desists and not actual convictions, it was a very good success for us just getting them accepted. IFED do seem to be dealing with a lot of cease and desist disruptions rather than conviction route, and they're only finding 4% of the claimants reoffended. The claimants on both the IFED cases were also added to the IFR, the Insurance Fraud Register, which takes me nicely into the figures for last year. 19 referrals were added to the Insurance Fraud Register. However, even though that seems really low, there was a slight change in the Insurance Fraud Register, so it became more difficult to add cases to the register. However, since the change, we currently have 17 outstanding to be added, so that's improved significantly. So in all, a great year, and the cases of concern are ever growing, and one of the areas of concern we are finding at the moment, which I think all insurers are, is non-tariff injuries, which Mike happened to touch on earlier on. So one of the issues everyone seems to be, all insurers are having, is the evolution of non-tariff injuries, and this was brought in order to help lower the fraudulent claims for whiplash. So for those of you who don't know, I'm sure you do, but just to cover, non-tariff injuries is anything that's not whiplash, so ankle, knee, wrist, elbow, tinnitus. This portal was launched in May 21 in order to help minimise the cost of whiplash claims, and you will see from the table on the slide that if you suffered with a whiplash only injury, there's a certain tariff, a certain amount that will go next to that tariff. So for example, 10 months you'll be awarded with £1,320, and then it goes on and on and on. However, this tariff does not include non-tariff injuries, and these are valued in the normal way. So since this portal was launched in May 21, as of the end of December 23, I believe the figures published actually show that 702,904 claims were actually submitted through this portal. And one of the main things we've seen with this new portal coming into place is that the UK has gone from having the weakest necks and backs to the weakest elbows, knees, ankles. And what we've also seen is a lot of solicitors that you wouldn't normally see an elbow or a wrist being submitted on a claims notification form that have never presented those are now presenting non-tariff injuries on all cases. So what at Zurich are we doing to tackle these? So we've got on the previous one of Mike's slides, on the right hand side there was all our investigation tools, and one of them is called HALT. This is run through one we collaborate with our solicitors, HF, and what we've done is we've given them a certain criteria and they've come up with this system for us. So any case that has a non-tariff injury will get run through this system. If it hits a certain criteria, then the handler will be told either to settle the tariff and dispute the non-tariff injury, or it's an automatic referral into the claims investigation unit. And then when the claim comes into us, the claim will get removed from the portal and a full repudiation is made. So this strategy we haven't been dealing with this strategy for very long, but so far our handlers have processed 181 claims and only one is litigated so far, which is an overall litigation rate of 2%. So out of the 181 claims put through HALT, 20% of them have been flagged to defend. So we are getting some really good results through this strategy already. I know even if the tariff, if it flags back and it says to pay tariff and defend the non-tariff, we are getting some good results and the solicitors are just accepting the tariff. We obviously have to take, from a motor perspective, we have to take into account the amount of vehicle damage. Would a judge agree that they wouldn't have sustained any injury? So we have to take all that into account as well. We've recently been advised as well that the claims that have run through HALT, 91% of the claims that have been run through feature non-tariff injuries. So as well as non-tariff injuries, Mike touched upon AI earlier on, and one of the big problems we're finding within the industry is shallow fakes. So what are shallow fakes? I'll just quickly cover this. Shallow fakes are where images and videos are manipulated using editing tools such as Photoshop or Adobe. While these editing tools are rather basic, it can lead to some really realistic images being created, like the two images on the slide that are being shown. Shallow fake images can be used in the support of a contrived claim. The two images on this slide are from an actual claim that was submitted to us. One is the original and the other is the one that has been manipulated. And what we're finding is that the fraudsters are using the internet, the dark web, to find images of damaged vehicles, and we're finding the majority of them are salvage images. And they're using these in order to support their claim. So the first photo on the slide, you will see there's the number plate is showing Salvage 75 Limited. That is actually the original genuine image, and the second image is the one we've received in support of the claim. And you can see the number plates changed in the photo, and I don't know how well you guys can see the second photo, but the badge has also been manipulated off. So all the claims we're receiving are paper-based. We've even received engineering evidence, which look really genuine. Obviously, you can tell they're not genuine when you do searches on the number plates, and the models and everything don't match up. And in this particular case, what's happened is they've targeted one of our commercial customers. The claim was reported to us by our policyholder, or so we thought. It wasn't until we made some inquiries that we found out the third party actually obtained our policyholder's details and reported the claims as though they're our policyholder. And they've said they were at fault, provided all the third party details, and then the third party then presents the claim to us. And when they've reported the claim, they've said our policyholder is at fault. We realised something was not quite right with this claim, and that it was a manipulated photo. So the way we found the second photo was a manipulated photo is, I don't know if anyone can see the vehicle that's in the back of the photo, and you can see like a white number plate in the background. And what actually happened is this case was referred to my manager, Paul Wheeler, and he had to look at that number plate, and that number plate says Salvage 75 Limited on it. So he did some inquiries, found the original image, found out it obviously isn't a genuine claim, and the claim was repudiated. I've just got another slide just to show you how wow these deep fakes are. Again, this is from another claim that was received within the team. And you can tell what the original photo is, because you got the one on the left is Hill Salvage, and the second is the one that's been presented. So you can see how good they're manipulating these photos. As if that was presented to me, if I was a normal handler, you wouldn't have even known it had been manipulated. So in this particular example, you've got the Hills number plate, which has been changed, and then you've got the confetti on the background of the whiteboards. I mean, they haven't done anything else with the vehicles in the back, but if I wasn't in fraud and I received that as a normal claims handler, I wouldn't have thought any different. And again, it was repudiated on this case. Just want to apologise for any of you who's actually already seen these, but these are some of the best deep shallow fakes we've actually seen, and they are only going to get harder to spot as new technology comes in and AI evolves generally. So I just want to show you something slightly different to this. They are shallow fakes, but what we call opportunistic shallow fakes. So they're not the greatest of manipulated documents because they're easy to spot, but I just wanted to show you what other shallow fakes we are seeing. So these two images are examples of documents that we've received from a direct claimant to claim his excess back. So what he's done, he's provided us with a screenshot on the left, and he's changed the 650. He says to confirm the policy has paid an excess of 650. Now he's used some sort of software to change that. Now, whilst you look at it, it looks absolutely fine. What then doesn't support that screenshot is the letter he's then presented, which is on the right hand side. And hopefully you'll be able to see it, and it's not too small, but the customer, the claimant has changed the excess in the list of what the insurer's paid, but he's forgot to change the excess on the first line. So it says, as discussed, this is confirmation you paid the 450 excess, but then he's changed the excess below to 650. This come into our team, and we got in contact with the insurer, as well as look at the documents that the insurer actually sent us, claiming their outlay back from us, and all the outlay documents we received from the insurer state 450. So it's like, right, okay, so we need to clarify this. So we contacted the insurer, they confirmed his excess is 450. So with this information, we repudiated the claim. He is being added to the insurance fraud register. Off the back of the repudiation, he obviously, as you can understand, he wasn't very happy at all with the decision we made. So he said, oh, my insurer will be in touch. So it's like, okay, that's fine. We received a call from the claimant because it was his mobile number. He was actually pretending to be the insurer at the time. And unfortunately, it didn't get through to the actual handler, but he was trying to pretend he's the insurer. So another reason I wanted to obviously show you this particular case is that it doesn't matter how big or small the fraud is, we will always investigate it. But it just shows you the length some people will go to just for a little bit more extra money. I mean, this example, he would have got his 450. It was a genuine accident, but because he wanted to claim for an extra £200, we've repudiated the entire thing and he's received nothing. Another shallow fake we received, so this is slightly different. It was a genuine accident. We've reversed into a claimant's vehicle. Mike, can you change the slide, please? Thank you. We've reversed into a claimant's vehicle, so you can see it's badly damaged. Genuine accident. The claimant was a makeup artist, and she said she had a buggy in the boot of her car with a massive carrier bag with all her makeup in, as she'd been to a wedding the day before to obviously to do her job. She advised she had makeup in this bag, such as MAC, Charlotte Tilbury, all the expensive makeup artists you can think of. She also said she'd left her business iPhone in the car as well, in this bag, along with some very expensive Dyson air curlers and Dyson hair straighteners. So it's like, right, okay, that's fine. Can you provide us with photos of all the damaged items along with the receipts and support? So the overall value of her claim is about £6,000. And the reason this case was referred to us was that as the weeks were going on, the claimant was adding more and more items to the list of things that were damaged, and she was getting, very, very pushy. So due to these concerns, it was brought into the team and it was allocated to me. I was the handler at the time. I didn't like the photos that were provided. Something just seemed off with them. So I sent them all to our intelligence team, who carried out searches on the items. So as well as do reverse image searches on all the photos provided, the particular intel analyst that had this case is really into their makeup. So what she did is she went to all the different TikToks, the makeup pages that she knows of, and she found some of the photos from reverse imaging searches and looking at TikTok and all the makeup pages. So all the items that this claimant was claiming for was taken from the internet. So with the information in hand, what we requested from the claimant, because she was a direct claimant, is we take a statement from her just for her to detail exactly what was damaged, along with where the photos come from, where of the damaged items, as well as the receipts, and we asked our investigator to pick up the damaged items as well, so we can take them away and have another look, especially with the Dyson air curlers and the hair straighteners. Claimant absolutely refused a face-to-face interview, wouldn't even come away from her home address. She said her son was vulnerable. I think this was during COVID, and we said, right, okay, we'll do a video interview, but we'll get our investigator to come around and pick up the damaged items. And she said no, flatly refused. And then all of a sudden she said she's thrown all the items out, despite knowing we wanted to collect them from her. We finally managed to arrange a video interview with the claimant, and within this interview, the claimant confirmed she took all the photos of the items and the receipts, and they were in her iCloud account, and this statement had a statement of truth, and she signed it. So when everything come back to us, I repudiated the claim. Despite repudiating the claim, she decided she was still going to continue to telephone us, dispute what she had done. So we maintained our position. We added the claimant to the insurance fraud register, and we referred this to the insurance fraud enforcement department. Now, despite the low value of it, I was quite surprised that they actually accepted this case. The IFED actually got the claimant into interview on 2 occasions, and yet she still continued to deny that she had taken these photos off the internet. She even denied signing the statement that was taken from her by the investigator, but I think she also forgot that the video interview was also recorded. So we discussed this at length with IFED. Due to the value, due to the backlog of the courts, and she has no previous criminal history, and she was down as a vulnerable individual, we didn't think that this would be a suitable case to run through to the CPS, and it wouldn't be in the public interest either. So what IFED did was attend her home address with a cease and desist letter. So it's basically a caution. She and the claimant had to sign this letter, which she did. So it will go on her record. So despite denying everything, she accepted the caution, and that was the end of the claim. Just want to show you some of the photos that she actually provided to us. The one on the left is the image she actually supplied us, and the one on the right, it's a screenshot from a YouTube video of showing you how you can actually repair your broken compact. And you can see all the claimant's done is taken a screenshot and just shrunk it, so then the reverse image search wouldn't work. I believe that one was TikTok. The next slide will show a receipt that the claimant provided, because she still maintained her phone was damaged. We didn't believe it, because we tried getting her to send us video footage to show that the Dyson curlers and hair straighteners weren't working, and she said, I've only got a very basic phone, it doesn't record, doesn't take photos. What phone nowadays doesn't take photos and doesn't take video? So we believe it we had an inkling it wasn't obviously genuine, which in this particular occasion it wasn't. So she provides us with the receipt, is the one on the left hand side, and our intel analyst found the original, which is on the right hand side. It was being sold on eBay. When I questioned the claimant regarding because it was in Northern Ireland, she said her dad lived in Northern Ireland. We know that's not the case from the searches we undertook. So yeah, so these are just examples of how shallow fakes are becoming more prevalent in our area. And one final thing I just want to touch upon before I hand back over to Mike is that we've heard lots about staged, contrived and induced accidents over the years. So we've just got two dash cam footages, some dash cam footage of some induced accidents I just want to go through with you. So the first dash cam footage is this dash cam footage from our policyholder. You will see can you play it, Mike? Is that all right, please? You'll see that the blue Mini is quite far ahead, so there's no reason for this guy to slam on. We received claims in for vehicle damage, credit hire, and 2 personal injury claims. Now, I'm just going to point out, you can see the sun is actually behind the claimant because you can see it shining off the back of the car and the Mini, and that will become relevant in just a second. The claims were repudiated and never pursued. Despite this camera footage, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department did not take this on for investigation. And the reason they didn't take it on is because when the third party was questioned, he basically lied to them and said that the reason he slammed on his brake is because the sun was in his eyes, which caused him to brake. And yet obviously you can clearly see the sun isn't in his line of vision, it's actually behind him, and because IFED were not able to prove beyond reasonable doubt that he did it deliberately and he had a plausible explanation, they didn't take the case on. Because we're an insurance company, and even though we repudiated it and that was our position, we only have to prove on a balance of probability that it was a deliberate act. We repudiated it, maintained it, and it went away. Now, the second dash cam is actually in 2 parts because it was a lot of footage. This case was actually flagged to us by our customer through their claims relationship manager, as they had concerns that this could be a potentially induced accident. So when you see the footage, it comes across as an induced accident. However, the third party has stopped at the giveaway lines. So we're in 2 minds if this was deliberately induced. So we received 3 claims in for personal injury and vehicle damage. When the claims for injury were received, we looked at the claims notification forms, and the driver of the accident was said to have been an older gentleman. And he had his wife and his son in the car. So occupancy wasn't an issue, and this was confirmed with our driver. However, when speaking to our driver, he advised that the older gentleman was not the driver, but the young man. So this next clip, if you don't mind, Mike, please. What you don't see before the next clip after this one, because we've got loads of different footage on this case, is when the cars pull over, the woman gets out of the back. You see in that footage just now, the young gentleman move out of the passenger side, but the footage beforehand shows that the woman got out the back. The older gentleman with the cap actually got out of the passenger seat, and what's happened is the young driver's actually moved across from the driver's seat to get out of the vehicle. So it's like, right, okay, so something didn't seem right on this case. So, and from what our driver has explained, we made further inquiries. So first thing we did is we spoke to the insurer of the third party vehicle, who said the only person insured on the vehicle was the older gentleman in the cap. So, right, okay. So in order to now the claimant's their colours to their mast, what we did is we sent part 18 questions to the claimants for them to confirm exactly who the driver was. We only received one set of questions back, which was from the older gentleman who said he was the driver. He confirmed he was the driver. He also signed it with a statement of truth. He said his wife was actually in the front passenger seat and his son was in the back. So from the footage we have, we know this is not the case. So what we did with this information, we repudiated the claim in full. It was never pursued. We come to the conclusion that because the driver was a young, inexperienced driver and they had a provisional license, because we also requested photo ID, he was inexperienced. We didn't believe it was a deliberately induced accident, especially for the fact that the young driver isn't insured as well. We repudiated the claim, added the driver to the IFR, and it was a great result in the end. I'm just conscious for time, so I'm going to leave that there and pass back over to Mike.
Oh. Thanks, Becky. After seeing all those case examples, I kind of almost felt the pressure to provide you with a casualty example. So therefore, this leads me to the Great Drain Robbery, as titled by The Sun. So this was a case where it was alleged that Mr. Craze fell down the drain that you can see there and dragged Mr. Barnacote down the same drain with him. However, there were numerous red flags, as you probably can already tell, but just by looking at the photo of the exposed manhole. But we also had a tip-off in the claimant was overheard, or the claimants were overheard planning this accident at a local pub. The ambulance and the police attended, and they raised serious questions about the validity of this accident. The most notable concern was the silt at the bottom of the drain was left completely undisturbed. The case somehow made its way all the way to trial, being argued, and we defended it, and a fundamental dishonesty finding was made at trial. We then decided to pursue this further and took the action of contempt of court. I noticed from the chat that somebody else had mentioned this. This case went all the way to trial. Both pleaded guilty and received a 6-month prison sentence. So that was the Great Drain Robbery. I just want to move on to what you can do to assist. I'm not going to go through these red flag indicators today, but I'll ensure that the slides are disseminated after the presentation so you can refer to this, and by all means use these as cases come onto your desk. So once a fraud type has been identified and indicators have been noticed, a fraud investigator will put in place a clear strategy with an objective of being able to establish fraud that has occurred. This, of course, reverse engineers and when it puts the burden of proof onto the defendant to prove that the claimant has been fundamentally dishonest. And this is where you can assist if we want to get those findings. The first area that I just wanted to elaborate on was the importance of CCTV retention, and this cannot be overstated. There's arguably no better evidence. So even if the incident isn't captured on footage at the date and the time alleged, this negative is excellent evidence in a fictitious loss case. Comprehensive accident reports and investigations. Again, evidence taken at the time of the accident is so much more powerful than statements, say 3 years post-incident at litigation stage. And even if it's reported as a near miss, or person says that no injuries were sustained, it's really pivotal that this is documented, as this could be incredible evidence. Moreover, in terms of contemporaneous statements from witnesses, if individuals were in the vicinity of the accident but they didn't witness anything, again, this is arguably crucial, as again, this could be fantastic evidence. Another area could be retention of clocking cards on employers' liability cases. When did the claimant clock in? When did the claimant clock out? And does that corroborate the accident? And the reason I mention that is as we go on to the next slide and talk about investigation techniques, a senior fraud barrister who we commonly use says it's for the claimant to establish the 3 C's if they're going to win a fraud case. So this is credibility, consistency, and corroboration. Therefore, utilising the evidence you provide and via our own investigations, we need to discredit, we need to show inconsistency and raise any doubts on corroborative evidence or alleged corroborative evidence that has been provided. So in terms of consistency, I'm a major advocate of Part 18 questions. Becky referred to them earlier. And this is all about getting the claimant to sign a statement of truth pre-litigation, tie them into a statement. And if you find inconsistencies through the investigation, you can refer back to that statement. Another example could be metadata analysis of photographs. Are they in line with the claimant's story? What time was the photograph taken? On what date? And this is where the technology that I spoke about before is incredibly important. The second area is credibility. So is the claimant credible? So in a fictitious loss case, this could be incredibly important, as you've ultimately got to convince the judge whether or not this claimant is capable of completely fabricating a claim. So what can you do as an insurer? Well, we can follow up extensive claims histories, contact other insurers involved on similar incidents, similar injuries. Is there any evidence of financial hardship or a motive for this individual to make a fraudulent claim? Personnel records, again, disciplinary issues. Is it a disgruntled claimant? Particularly dishonesty offences, they could be relevant from a credibility perspective. But when I say credibility, customers' credibility is also paramount too. So linking back to the previous slide, if you've got fantastic risk assessments, inspection records, training, it really boosts the defendant's credibility and therefore casts further doubt about the claimant's version of events. And the last thing I just wanted to touch on was around corroboration. So did they call an ambulance? If so, can we obtain the call recording? Obtain all full medical records to get a real clear picture. And lastly, witness evidence. Is this consistent with the claimant's version of events? So that takes us to the end of the presentation, and yeah, we've still got some time left for questions. So I'll just hand over to Carl.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks very much. I think Tracy's put a comment in the chat, so if you've got any questions, please get them in. But just to start the ball rolling, the MOJ reforms, have they been a success? What's your thoughts?
In my opinion, and only in my opinion, I don't think they have. I think they've made things worse. Whilst I understand they've tried limiting whiplash, I believe that it's made things worse because of the non-tariff injuries. The solicitors are trying to increase the cost of their claims, so they are adding the neck, the back, neck and back. Sorry, the elbows and the knees. But we have, like I was saying earlier, we have got a strategy in place, and that seems to be working. So watch this space. No doubt that will evolve as time goes on as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Somebody mentioned in an earlier conversation that was going on is about, obviously we've talked a lot about photos. What about videos? Are they easier to secure, or can they be manipulated as well? Is it worth asking the claimant for a video?
It might be. I mean, I haven't personally had any claims, or from what I know with the current cases ongoing, of any videos being presented, but it's definitely a line of investigation that no doubt is being considered. If but then trying to spot if it's a fake video, again, we can look at metadata. Myself and one of the other team managers, Paul, did a digital course with CFAS, and metadata can actually be changed, so you can't always rely on that. But yeah, it's a difficult one really, because it's hard to I haven't actually seen a manipulated video myself, and I don't think we've necessarily had one just yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing them soon with all the AI that is technology that's coming in.
And just to expand on that, I kind of echo Becky's comments. So shallow fakes are, as Becky articulated, where we are seeing documents being manipulated, Photoshop, etc. Deep fakes is this kind of almost scarier thought that somebody could manipulate a video and put somebody who wasn't there on CCTV, showing them slip and trip, etc. And I think this takes a much kind of larger degree of sophistication than a shallow fake. And I think if we start seeing this, it's much more likely there's organised criminality, and it moves very much away from opportunistic fraud. I'm not aware across the industry that we are yet in deep fake, and I don't know whether you've seen, I think on Channel 4 there was a programme where Boris Johnson or Donald Trump, or these figures could be inserted onto various into various clips, but we haven't yet seen that degree of sophistication within personal injury claims.
Thank you, Mike. I think we've just got time for one more question. Have you got? Can you see once any that's come in, Tracy?
Yeah, there's one in the Q&A from Claire Thompson. She's just asking, from a local authority standpoint, they deal with their own pothole claims in-house, and how do they check, or what can they do to make sure that the person claiming hasn't made a claim on their own insurance?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So what I do from an insurance perspective, we probably have availability to, or we will have availability to various databases, etc. That you won't have the ability to look at. Therefore, we are more than happy to speak. If you speak via your CRM and ask whether or not we can assist with specific examples and cases, we're more than happy to consider that in certain areas, particularly where there's suspicion of fraud. So by all means, just reach out to your CRM on those topics.
I think there's time for one quick question. Someone's asked about trends in motor claims or new strategies. That's not an easy word to say this time of day. Sort of the flash for crash craze that we've had a few years ago. Is there anything else that sort of we're seeing?
The deep fakes, mainly the deep fakes. We are still seeing your I was going to say flash for cash, but that is still a thing. Yeah. Your crash for cash, we're still seeing your normal low speed impact. But the big things we are seeing at the moment is the shallow fake stuff. Because if you get a letter, especially that excess one, if you get a letter from your insurer, 9 times out of 10, it's probably a Word document if it hasn't been sent in the post, and you can quite easily just change it, like the excess. So we are still seeing all the usual crash for cash and your low speed impacts, but at the moment it is the shallow fakes and the non-tariff injuries, which seems to be a big thing at the minute.
Thank you very much. I think that's probably about all the time. So Becky, did you want to quickly close?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Carl. And I think we've definitely filled the time well. If there's anything we haven't covered, we will pick it up and put them out with the slides. So just really to say thanks everybody for attending, and I hope you all found it interesting and informative, and also many thanks to Rebecca and Mike for presenting the event. So thanks again. So we will send out the recording and slides and a survey that we would be very grateful for if you could provide feedback. So thanks very much.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you.